You need an efficient method to clearly identify the obstacles you face and tap the creativity and wisdom of your team to come up with ideas for conquering the obstacles and drive your business forward. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. For millennia, athletic contests have revolved around questions like who can run the fastest, who can lift the most, who can jump the highest. Richard Douglas grew up in Oregon in the United States in the 1960s. In middle school, Richard was a promising high jumper. But between middle school and high school, he experienced a growth spurt to over 6 feet, and he began having trouble coordinating his lanky frame over the bar. In his sophomore year in high school, he failed to complete jumps of 5 feet, which was the qualifying height for most high school meets. Recalling his struggles, he said, "I was the worst guy in our school, the worst guy in our conference, and probably the worst guy in the state of Oregon." Now, we all know promising athletes who fail to live up to their potential for whatever reason, but Richard loved high jumping, and despite his struggles, he kept trying to improve. Fortunately, at the same time, there was a change happening in the sport of high jumping. Now, the essence of the sport remained the same. That is, who can jump the highest over a bar. But up until the 1960s, high jump athletes cleared the bar and landed on hard ground, like sawdust or sand or perhaps a low mat. And as a result, innovation of high jump techniques attempted to ensure that the athletes landed on their feet. Richard's high school was one of the first to install a deep foam matting for a high jump landing. Richard took advantage of this change in environment and compensated for the limitations of his lanky frame by innovating a new approach to overcoming an old obstacle. Like Richard, your company has a variety of limitations. For instance, think of the geography that you do business in. If you're in the Bay Area, you have certain limitations. If you're down in Los Angeles, you have certain limitations. If you're out in New York or in the United Kingdom or in Australia, the geography that you do business in limits your construction business because construction is a very local type of endeavor. The quality of the processes that you use, that limits your business as well. Your bonding capacity can limit your business in that it affects the size of projects that you can build. Not only do you have internal limitations, you have external limitations. You have a constantly changing environment that you do business in. Competition is coming and going all the time. Technology is radically shifting and changing, and that's having an impact on your business. The economy, which you basically have no control over, is always impacting you. We don't need to rehash the huge impact of the last Great Recession in around 2008. So not only do you have these internal limitations and these external changes in environment, but you also have familiar obstacles that you must overcome in your construction business. And those obstacles include getting work. And then when you get the work, completing the projects on time and under budget, and then chasing the money around and getting paid for what you've done. Now, unlike Richard, the high jumper, you don't have years to tinker and experiment and figure out a different way of overcoming the obstacles. You need an efficient method to clearly identify the obstacles you face and tap the creativity and wisdom of your team to come up with ideas for conquering the obstacles and drive your business forward. In today's episode of Construction Genius, you'll learn a step-by-step process for doing exactly that. It's simple, it's powerful, and it works. Now, before I explain the process of how to figure out overcoming your obstacles, I have to give you a word of warning. This process will not work unless you, as the leader, are willing to be honest, humble, and decisive. Secondly, I want to give you the promise. If you use this step-by-step process as I describe it, you'll be able to lead your team in a meeting from a blank whiteboard or a blank flip chart to unanimous commitment on what you're going to do to overcome the obstacles you face in less than an hour. Now, before we dive into the details of the process, I want you to understand that this approach is designed to help you avoid the 3 traps that construction companies typically fall into when they're trying to overcome obstacles. Number 1, unfortunately, they ignore the obstacle and hope it goes away. Now, think about a project that you're working on where perhaps the schedule is beginning to slip. Your team is super busy, you're running at 100 miles an hour, you're avoiding the discomfort of addressing the issue with the project team or with the owner, and so you ignore the schedule slippage and hope that everybody catches up in the end. That rarely happens, though. And so you have to end up settling for a reduced profit or even a loss. Now, always remember, when you're ignoring an issue and hoping that it goes away, the more time you let go, the more your pain will increase. One of the keys in life is to address the issues in your business as quickly as you can, because if you do that, you will reduce the amount of pain that you have to suffer, and you will also reduce the amount of money that you lose. The second trap that construction companies fall into is misidentifying the problem. So let's say you have an owner's rep, and they're complaining to you about one of your foremen that's running work on a project. So you replace the foreman, hoping that that will fix the problem. The owner's rep continues to complain and make your life difficult. And you understand after a while that it's really not your foremen who were the problem, it's the owner's rep who's the problem. And instead of switching out foreman, you should have contacted the owner directly and hashed out the issues. So that's the second trap, misidentifying the problem. The third trap is a failure to execute. And this is often the most demoralizing for a construction company team. So you've correctly identified the obstacles that you need to overcome. You get a bunch of good ideas from people on how to overcome that obstacle. The team is pumped, they're ready to rock, but you fail to prioritize the ideas and you bite off more than you can chew. So for instance, let's say you understand, I need to improve quality of my projects across the board. And so as a team, you decide to implement a comprehensive training program for the entire field. You start strong, but then you get overwhelmed with work and you never fully implement. Instead of doing an across-the-board training program, you should have taken a smaller step, tested out the program in one area, and then made incremental progress. And if you have a failure to execute on the ideas, your company begins to get a reputation. When all is said and done, a lot was said and nothing gets done. The good news is this approach that I've developed to problem solving and that I've taught construction companies is specifically designed to help you avoid all 3 of these traps. There are 3 steps to this innovative process for overcoming obstacles. Number 1, you must identify the obstacles correctly. Number 2, you have to get the ideas of your team. And then the third step is you must prioritize the ideas and decide what you're going to do. Let's look at step 1, identifying the obstacles correctly. This is where honesty comes in. All progress in life begins with us telling the truth. As a leader, you must tell yourself the truth. And if you're honest, sometimes you're a master at lying to yourself. And if you do a bad job picking out leaders for your organization, you may unintentionally surround yourself with yes men and women who aren't very good at telling you the truth either. You must tell yourself the truth about what's going on in your business and encourage your executive team to be able to find out and then tell the truth also. So how do you discover the truth of what's really going on in your construction company? How do you identify those obstacles correctly? Number one, you must use your head. Look at the numbers of a project. Are you making labor? Is the estimated versus the actual cost in line with your expectations? Are the safety metrics up to standard? Or are you beginning to get these little incidences that are indicative of deeper problems? Is everyone sticking to the schedule, or is there a lagging as far as that's concerned? If you think about the business development side of your organization, how is your backlog right now? I know everyone gets pumped about this year and perhaps next year, but what are you doing about 2021 or 2022? Think about your receivables for the moment. If you look at your AR, are there some outstanding receivables that you need to chase down? Some past due accounts where you need to pick up the phone and get the money that's rightly yours? So the first way you identify these obstacles correctly is you use your head. The second way is you must use your gut. Now, you have a lot of experience in construction, and the more experience you get, the more you know it in your bones, what's going on in your business and on a project. And sometimes you just know that something is off. Someone's taking more time off than they used to, or a GC who always returned your calls has all of a sudden gone silent, or your superintendent seems to be slacking off on holding his guys accountable. So trust your gut. Your gut is educated by your head and by your experience. And when you combine your head and your gut, you can really get a good sense of what's going on in your business. And then the third way that you can identify the obstacles correctly is by using your soul. Oh, this is really interesting. Your soul is how you relate to other people. And construction is a soul game. It's a game of relationships. And so when you're looking to identify your problems, you must take what you think from the numbers that you've looked at and what you feel in your gut and go out to the job site or to the GC's office or into your lunchroom and have conversations with people to confirm what you're thinking and feeling the obstacles in your business are. So in order to identify those obstacles correctly, you must look at your numbers, combine that with your fine-tuned instincts, and then get out there and have conversations to confirm what you're seeing and feeling. Now, as you do this, you may be distressed at the obstacles you find, but remember, all progress begins by telling the truth. Burying your head in the sand, saying everything is awesome when it's not, or flying off the handle and losing your cool are not innovative strategies. So once you've identified those obstacles, you must then take the second step of the process and gather your team and get the ideas of your team. So first, you got to gather your team. Whoever's directly involved with the obstacle that can give you input, and anyone who is indirectly involved and has some insight that you might think is valuable, gather them together and freely share with them the problem or the obstacle that you're facing. And this is where humility comes in. And what I mean by humility is a freedom from pride and arrogance. And this is what humility says. I don't have all the ideas. Humility says, we are in this together. And it also says, our business is a team sport. It's not a dictatorship. And you understand as a humble leader that people must weigh in before they buy in. And even if you have the final say, you should value the input of your experienced construction professionals, and you understand human nature and know that the more input someone gives, the more likely they are to commit to whatever direction you choose. Once you've gathered the team, then you must state the challenge well. And this is an absolutely critical aspect of the process. Let's go back to Richard Douglas. His challenge was pretty straightforward. It was to improve his high jump. Now, I'm going to give you the structure of a question that you should ask in each one of these meetings where you're looking to overcome an obstacle. Let's imagine that you are looking to improve safety in your organization. The way you would structure a question so that you can dive into thinking about how you can improve safety is like this. In what specific ways can we improve safety in the next 90 days? Let me break down that sentence structure for you because it's a structure that you can use again and again. The first part of the sentence is this: in what specific? Now, specificity is essential. And that word specific is the most important word that you can focus on when you're looking to overcome. The smallest, most specific action can have a huge impact. And I'll give you an example. For many years, my dad suffered with stomach cramps every time he would eat. He had indigestion, he had constipation, all kinds of issues, right? It sucked. And this was some deep pain. It wasn't just like a heartburn, it was deep pain. So eventually, like most men, he kind of delayed it, but eventually he went to the doctor, right? And the doctor did a few tests, came back with the results. My dad was a celiac. In other words, he had a gluten intolerance. So eating wheat bread and pasta and all those good things that we like to eat, it was causing him some deep pain. And so the doctor gave him a specific way to overcome the obstacle of that pain. And that was simply stopping eating gluten, such as wheat and pasta and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so the first part of the question is, in what specific? The second part is ways. And again, whenever you're looking to overcome obstacles and you're going to spend the time and the money and the energy to bring your team together, you must have a bias to action. And that word ways has an implication of action. So going back to my dad, it's one thing to go to the doctor and the doctor to say, eliminate gluten. It's a completely separate matter to do that. Fortunately, my dad did, and his stomach condition improved. The next part of the question is, in what specific ways can we? So what you're saying then is that we are in this together. And in order to overcome the obstacle, it will likely be a team effort. Unlike Richard Douglas, who was involved in an individual sport and was spending time by himself tinkering around. So therefore, we'll have to work together. And this is particularly important in construction companies where all kinds of silos exist, particularly between the field and the office, the us against them. And if you're experiencing some of those issues in your business, you must gather your team together and you must ask them, in what specific ways can we? And then after you say that, you insert the obstacle. So in the example I gave you, it was, in what specific ways can we improve safety? So look at your bid processes, your build processes, your billing processes, look at your people, look at the types of projects that you're building. You'll find all kinds of obstacles. And once you've identified that obstacle correctly, you can insert it into that question. And then the last part is you can insert that time frame if that's helpful. So in what specific ways can we improve safety in the next 90 days? And this is appropriate if you want to direct the thinking of the team to a specific time frame, if there's a real sense of urgency about overcoming this obstacles. So another couple of examples of questions. In what specific ways can we increase our labor production? In what specific ways can we win more projects in the next 90 days? So once you've stated the challenge well and everybody understands it, you then need to get their ideas. And the best way to do this is to write out the challenge on the whiteboard in your conference room or on a flip chart so that everyone can see it and everyone can begin processing it and thinking about it. So, getting people's ideas. Now, you know what I'm talking about here, right? I'm talking about you calling a meeting of your people. And I understand that everybody hates meetings. But remember that construction is a communication game and it necessitates meetings on a regular basis. So you as a construction leader, if you're going to be effective, you must become a skilled meeting facilitator. And you may hate meetings, but I've found that the only reason meetings are hated is because they're badly run and they waste people's time. So after you've stated the challenge and you've written it on the board where everyone can see, set your timer for 2 minutes and ask everyone to get a paper and a pen and to start to write as many ideas as they can come up with to overcoming the challenge that you've stated on the board. Now, you're only going to give them 2 minutes because number one, you want to give them a constraint and concentrate their focus. And number two, you want to execute this meeting in under 60 minutes. So just give them 2 minutes. And in my 15 plus years experience using this process, 2 minutes is perfectly sufficient for people to generate a series of really good ideas to overcoming the obstacles that they're facing. Now, as you're giving them those 2 minutes, encourage them to green light thinking. And this is what I mean by green light thinking. You're driving down the road and you see a green light. What do? You go, right? This is the kind of attitude that you want to cultivate in people. There are no bad ideas in this obstacle overcoming meeting. Every idea will be considered and no one will be mocked. You're looking for outside the box thinking, inside the box thinking. You don't really care. You just want the best ideas of your team to address these issues. So you set the timer for 2 minutes. Everybody writes for that entire 2 minute time. If they run out of ideas, that's fine, but you want them just to write down as many ideas as they come up with. Then, after they've written out their list of ideas, you want them to narrow those ideas down. So have them take a look at their list and simply pick their top 2 ideas. Okay? Once they've done that, your job now is to gather the ideas. And this is where your meeting facilitation skills really come in. And the way you do it is you go around the room and you go one at a time and you ask the first person to share one of their ideas. Now, you'll find many times that people want to share their 2 ideas right away, and just stop them and ask them specifically, give me your first idea. And then you write that idea on the whiteboard or the flip chart. You don't want to start with the leaders of the organization or the senior executives. You want to leave them for later. And as you're going around the room, let me give you some facilitation tips that are absolutely essential as you're gathering these ideas. Number 1, you must listen intently. You must give the person your full attention and your full respect. Number 2, push for specificity. So if they give you an idea and you're thinking, it still sounds a little bit general to me, ask them for a specific example of what they're talking about. And also what you want to do is if the idea is kind of muddied, ask them for that specific example, then reframe what they're saying if you can to try and get the clarity that you're looking for. And then when they've shared the idea with you, simply say, thank you. So once you've identified the obstacles correctly, once you've got the ideas of your team, you're ready for the third step of this process for overcoming the obstacles in your organization. And that is prioritizing the ideas and deciding what you're going to do. So identifying the obstacle requires honesty on your part. Getting the ideas of your team requires you saying, hey, I need help. That's humility. The third part requires you to be decisive. And every great leader has no problem making decisions. Now, as I'm going through this process, an objection may be coming up in your head. You're in a meeting with a bunch of guys and gals, and they give you all their ideas for how you're going to overcome the obstacles in your business. And you might be saying, Eric, are you telling me that I have to give equal weight to the opinion of some green project engineer that just graduated from college over a seasoned superintendent? And I would say not necessarily. First off, when you're thinking about how to overcome obstacles and you're going to call a meeting, you should only be having people in the room who can give you some good contribution. And secondly, I'm now going to show you how to narrow the list of ideas down to the ones that will really make a difference and help you to innovate over the obstacles that you face. Let's talk about how to prioritize the ideas and decide what you're going to do. Now, by now, your team will be pretty pumped up because they'll be looking at the whiteboard or the flip chart, and there'll be anywhere from 12 to 16 or 17 ideas on the board. And many of them will be extremely good and they'll be right on. But we don't want to fall into the trap that we talked about earlier of when all was said and done, a lot was said and nothing was done. Happens all the time in meetings, right? You come up with a bunch of great ideas, you walk out the door, everyone gives each other a high five, and then 5 minutes later, we all forget about what we talked about and nothing ever gets done, right? So let's say you have 15 ideas on the board or on the flip chart. Give each meeting participant 5 votes, or 1/3 of the total of the 15 ideas, and ask them to pick 5 of the 15 ideas, the ones that they would consider to be the best in light of overcoming the obstacle that you have identified, and that can be implemented in the time frame that you're choosing. Now, when they're picking the ideas or when they're giving their votes, they can't stack their votes. And they can also vote for their own idea. And so again, let's say you have 15 ideas, you give each meeting participant 5 votes, and each participant then votes for 5 of the 15 ideas. As you go around the room and gather the votes, you're going to see an amazing thing happen. Almost every single time, 2 or 3 of the ideas will get the most votes in the room. And those ideas will often be a sequential set of ideas for overcoming the obstacle that you face. Let me give you an example from one of my clients a few years ago. Their obstacle was stated like this: in what specific ways can we improve the quality in the field in the next 90 days? They came up with 15 ideas, and they narrowed it down to 2 top ideas. The first one was walk jobs more frequently. And the second one was reposition a PM into the field as a teaching superintendent. This PM had field experience. And by walking the jobs more frequently and repositioning that person into a teaching superintendent role, they were able to impact the quality of their production. And they were able to come to this solution to overcoming the obstacle in less than 45 minutes. Let's review here. You need an efficient method to clearly identify the obstacles that you face. Tap the creativity and wisdom of your team to come up with ideas for conquering the obstacles so that you can decide how you're going to innovate over the obstacles and drive your business forward. Remember the 3 steps in this innovation process. Number 1, identify the obstacles correctly. Number 2, get the ideas of your team. Number 3, prioritize the ideas and decide what you are going to do. As you practice this, you'll be able to accomplish this entire meeting in under an hour. Now, let's go back to Richard Douglas. Remember, in his sophomore year in high school, he couldn't clear 5 feet in the high jump. He began to experiment with a new approach, jumping over the bar backwards and sort of shoulder and head first. In his junior year, he jumped 6'3", a record for his high school. In his senior year, he broke the state record with a jump of 6'5.5". In 1966, his sophomore year in college, he cleared 6'10". And in 1968, he won the NCAA championship. He was, in other words, the top college high jumper in the nation at 7 feet, 2.5". And finally, in 1968, he qualified for the U.S. Olympic team and won gold in Mexico City, clearing 7'4.25". Of course, Richard Douglas is only part of the high jumper's name that I have been talking to you about. His full name is Richard Douglas Fosbury, or as he's more commonly known, Dick Fosbury. He pioneered the Fosbury Flop. And at the time, it was a unique way of high jumping that revolutionized the sport. And today, over 50 years later, it's still the most used technique by world-class high jumpers. Let's talk about your next steps now. Number 1, very simply, identify those obstacles. Look at the numbers, trust your instincts, have those conversations to identify the obstacles. Number 2, gather the team, get their ideas to overcome the obstacles. Remember that question framework. In what specific ways can we? And then insert the obstacle and finish with the time frame. And then finally, prioritize the list of ideas and decide what you're going to do. If you'd like a report that details this process, you can go to my website. I call this process, it's a part of Kick-Ass Meetings. And you can go to my website, www.ericanderton.com/K as in kangaroo, A as in apple, M as in Mary. And there you can download your own copy for free of Kick-Ass Meetings that describes the process that I have been breaking down for you here today. I hope you found this helpful. Again, I've used this process with construction companies for so many years. It's extremely effective. People are amazed by how quickly they can go from a blank piece of paper to unanimous commitment on how they're going to overcome their toughest challenges in less than an hour. I hope you can use this process. I'd be extremely grateful if you could give us a review of the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Share this podcast with other people. I appreciate you listening. My name is Eric Anderton, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.